The Aviators was made possible by...
When the unexpected happens, the Lifesaver provides 1 hour of emergency attitude reference, giving you the time you need to land safely. In a mission's darkest moment, trust Mid-Continent Instruments.
Now, for the first time on TV, the stories and reports of the people who fly and the aircraft they fly. And you are invited in an exciting, pulse-pumping new television series designed for everyone who has ever gazed skywards and dreamt of slipping the bonds of Earth. The Aviators.
This week on The Aviators, we take a look at the Russian MiG-15. We explore the legacy and influence of the Cessna brand. We take a look at float training in the winter on Canada's west coast. We talk to legendary aerobatic pilot Patty Wagstaff. And we go inside a simulator to learn how to land an airliner. From the Boundary Bay Airport, this is The Aviators.
I'm Jeff Lewis, and I'm a staff correspondent with The Aviators. When I'm not on The Aviators, I'm a professional airline captain. Here we are in the Embraer 190 simulator, one of the most advanced airliners in the world today. This simulator operates exactly like the aircraft. The software that this simulator runs on is identical to the software in the aircraft. In the airline world, we may fly our entire careers without ever having an emergency or an incident. However, we train every 8 months in these simulators for that one day that we'll never forget. From hydraulic pump failures, to engine fires, to a bird strike that will take out both engines and we have to ditch into the Hudson just like Sully did, we train for these once-in-a-lifetime incidents or emergencies. We're in the simulator here. We're at about 10 miles final for a runway. I'm going to show you how to land an airliner. In the airline world, we usually have 2 pilots as a crew. However, today, for the demonstration purposes, I'm just going to show you the basics on how to land an airliner. So right now, we're at about 10 miles final for a runway. The autopilot, nicknamed George, is flying, but we're going to disconnect the autopilot and disconnect the auto throttles. An airliner is just like any other airplane. Flying is the same as in a Cessna 150 or any light twin. We have our yoke here, our thrust levers here, which control the engine power, our landing gear, and our flaps, and that's all we're going to need to ensure a safe landing. As we're coming up at about 8 miles final, I'm going to start a speed reduction. In order to land the aircraft safely on the runway, we have to ensure that the aircraft is at its landing speed when we touch down. While we're on the approach, I'll show you some basics on the Embraer. This is one of the most advanced glass cockpit aircraft flying today. We have our primary flight display, our multi-function display, and our map and systems display here. On our primary flight display, we have our airspeed on the left, our ADI, or attitude directional indicator, in the middle, and our altitude is on the right. There's lots of other information displayed on these screens. However, in order to land the aircraft, we just need the basics. Speed, heading, attitude, and altitude will get us to the ground safely. As we're decelerating here through 190 knots, flap 1 has been selected. I'm going to now select flap 2, and we're coming up at about 6 miles final. Flap 2 will enable us to further continue our deceleration to our safe landing speed. And as we come up here at about 5 miles, I'm going to select the landing gear down. The landing gear on the airliner takes a long time to come down, as much as about 15 seconds on this aircraft. Now that the wheels are down, I'm going to select the next flap setting and dial our speed back to the approach speed for the aircraft weight and the aircraft configuration. The aircraft is now decelerating through 160 knots. We're on short final. I'll select the landing flap, verify our landing gear is down, ensure that the flight directors are off, and now all I have to do now is land the aircraft. This is all now being manually flown. Our speed is 141 knots. That is set for our aircraft weight and programmed into the system prior to the descent. At this point, we always make sure the landing gear is down and the aircraft is configured. That will ensure that the aircraft is on a stabilized approach. As we come up on our final approach speed, our landing flap of 5 is selected, and again, I verify the landing gear is down. So we come up at the mile final, I ensure that the speed is on our approach speed and that we're on our 3-degree slope. We're doing this visually today, but this is the picture that we should be looking at when we're short final. We've been cleared to land, the aircraft is on speed, and it is a stable approach configuration. We're aiming for a touchdown point 1,500 feet down the runway, and you can see it on any runway by where all the rubber marks are. The 1,000-foot marker is labeled by the thick white lines. We crossed the runway threshold, otherwise known as the piano keys. We're at 50 feet, and I start the flare. The thrust levers are brought to flight idle, and we just put the aircraft very gently down on the runway. We've touched down, I select full reverse thrust and maximum wheel brakes. That ensures a safe stop on the available runway. As we come through 70 knots, I select the thrust levers out of reverse into idle. We can now come to a stop, and the parking brake is set. That is how you land an airliner.
The Aviators, for everyone who has ever gazed skywards.
For more information on today's segments, visit www.theaviators.tv.